Her plane departure slipped away from her. However, the events that followed would challenge your entire understanding of destiny. Aviation hubs possess a unique ability to diminish your sense of importance, transforming you into merely another anonymous traveler among countless others. This was precisely the sensation Danielle Rivers experienced while hurrying through Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, her shoulder bag cutting into her flesh and her ticket gripped tightly as though it contained her destiny. In many ways, it truly did. 14 minutes remained for her to travel from Terminal B to Terminal D to catch her connecting flight bound for Los Angeles. Missing this connection would eliminate her final journey segment to Seattle as well. Failing to make this trip was unacceptable. This represented her initial genuine opportunity to interview for a position that could transform her circumstances entirely. Danielle checked the display above Gate D4 while speedwalking past a busy Starbucks. Her spirits plummeted. Final boarding call. Fantastic. Simply fantastic, she grumbled quietly, navigating through the crowd of people like a football player in the game's final quarter. Then she noticed him, an aged gentleman wearing a creased gray coat, bent over a baggage cart close to the TSA security area. His luggage had toppled over sideways, spilling its contents, several shirts, documents, and what appeared to be a framed family photograph. He struggled to bend down, his knees shaking as if they might collapse at any moment. Passers-by ignored him completely. Nobody even paused their stride. Danielle stopped momentarily, caught between two realities. The departure gate that held her future and the unknown person who obviously required assistance. Her chest constricted. "Don't act on this," she told herself silently. "You cannot afford this delay." But when the elderly man reached for the dropped picture frame, his hand trembling so violently he nearly lost his grip, something within her shattered. She exhaled deeply, pushed her phone into her pocket, and rushed over. "Sir, allow me to assist you with that," she offered, kneeling down and collecting his scattered garments. "Oh, I appreciate this," he said breathlessly, his voice hoarse. "These hands aren't what they once were." "Don't worry about it," she smiled, placing the photograph back in the suitcase. "Are you traveling by yourself?" "Indeed, my son was meant to accompany me, but—" The man stopped, clearing his throat, and Danielle observed how his eyes became watery behind his spectacles. She didn't press for details. She simply closed the suitcase, placed it on the cart, and glanced toward her gate once more. The wall clock displayed 2:41 p.m. Her aircraft would depart by 2:50. Nevertheless, she gripped the handle of his cart and declared, "Let's go. I'll help you reach your gate." Little did Danielle realize that assisting this gentleman would result in missing her flight and alter her life beyond imagination. As they proceeded slowly through the airport, Danielle's thoughts weren't focused on time. Instead, she concentrated on the man who leaned heavily against the cart handle. His breathing was labored, his movements unstable. She modified her walking speed to prevent him from feeling pressured. "Do you know which gate you need?" she inquired, maintaining a calm voice despite her internal anxiety. He examined the ticket with his shaking hand. "Gate F7. I believe that's correct." Danielle acknowledged with a nod. F7. That destination was far across the terminal. She pressed her lips together but maintained her pleasant expression. "We'll reach it." As she spoke these words, she questioned whether she meant them for his benefit or her own, because honestly, life hadn't been particularly favorable to her recently. Danielle was 33 years old, residing in a modest apartment in Albuquerque, New Mexico, working two positions just to maintain her utilities. During daylight hours, she served as a receptionist at a dental office. At night, she cleaned commercial buildings downtown. The work wasn't prestigious, but it covered her expenses, barely. Most days, she skipped meals to conserve money, and she hadn't taken a genuine vacation in more than 5 years. This Seattle journey wasn't recreational, it was her opportunity. A marketing company that had contacted her for an interview, an entry-level role that could finally lift her from the perpetual cycle of surviving from one paycheck to the next. Success wasn't guaranteed, but it represented hope. And hope was something Danielle couldn't bear to lose. She had awakened at 4 a.m. for this trip, driven 2 hours to reach the airport for her initial flight, and now stood one connection away from the city that might transform her existence. Everything hinged on this moment. Her friends would likely consider her foolish for stopping. Her sister Alina certainly would. Alina was the pragmatic one, the don't take risks for strangers type. She had cautioned Danielle before her departure, stay focused. Catch your flight. Don't attempt heroics. For a brief moment back there, Danielle had heard that voice in her mind. But then she witnessed the elderly man's trembling hands, his tightly pressed lips as though he didn't want to show emotion before strangers, and she simply couldn't continue walking. As they moved forward, she observed him again. He appeared frail, yet something about his eyes, weary, certainly, but elate, suggested there was more to him than his delicate appearance and worn jacket indicated. "Are you visiting relatives?" she asked, attempting to lighten the heavy silence. The man chuckled quietly, though it sounded more like a cough. "You might say that. Traveling to Los Angeles first, then, well, the destination isn't particularly significant." Danielle nodded courteously, sensing his reluctance to share personal information. "Well, I'm traveling to Seattle for a job interview." "Oh." His eyebrows rose. "How exciting." "Yes, provided I arrive there," she replied with a brief laugh. She attempted to sound light-hearted, but the tension in her chest intensified, and for the first time since she had stopped to help him, the magnitude of what she might sacrifice began to weigh on her. Her eyes darted to the nearest timepiece, 2:44 p.m. She swallowed with difficulty, but the man ceased walking, and his next words would make Danielle completely forget about time. The elderly gentleman paused near a series of seats beside a window overlooking the runway. He clutched the cart handle as if it were his only means of staying upright. Danielle's heart gave a small pang. He looked completely drained. "Are you all right?" she asked gently. Yes. I just require a moment," he responded, slowly lowering himself into one of the chairs. His voice carried that dry roughness that accompanies age and perhaps a touch of pride, the kind that despises admitting vulnerability. Danielle positioned the luggage cart and crouched beside him. "Can I bring you some water or food?" He declined with a head shake, though his hands continued trembling slightly. "Water would be appreciated if it's not too inconvenient." "Not at all. I'll return shortly," she said, taking her tote bag and walking toward a small newsstand nearby. While standing in line for a water bottle, her eyes moved to the overhead clock, 2:46 p.m. Her gait wasn't even in this terminal. A sharp wave of worry struck her stomach. She could still succeed, perhaps, but she would need to run as if her existence depended on it. Currently, this felt like a different type of life-or-death scenario. Upon her return, he was gazing out the window at an aircraft slowly moving across the runway. She offered him the bottle, and he accepted it with a weak smile. "Thank you. What is your name, young woman?" "Danielle," she said, sitting on the chair's edge next to him. "And yours?" "Walter," he said simply, twisting off the bottle cap. His fingers struggled briefly before he managed to open it. "Walter Kensington." Danielle smiled. "Pleased to meet you, Walter." "Likewise, and thank you for stopping." Most people simply walk past. Danielle shrugged lightly. "Well, most people aren't me." He chuckled at that, a soft, warm sound. "And that's fortunate." There was something in his manner of speaking, as if he was studying her, truly observing her. Danielle suddenly felt somewhat self-aware, tucking a hay strand behind her ear. "Are you traveling alone?" she asked, more to fill the silence than anything else. "Yes, my son was supposed to meet me, but plans change." He sighed softly. Plans seem to always change. Danielle nodded slowly, uncertain how to respond. She checked the time again, 2:48 p.m. Her throat constricted. "I need to leave." But then Walter leaned forward, gripping the cart handle, and for a moment, it appeared he might collapse. Danielle instinctively reached out, supporting him by the elbow. "Are you certain you're okay?" she asked, her voice now firm. Yes, he said, regaining his stability. "Just these aging legs. They don't function properly anymore." Danielle breathed slowly. She couldn't abandon him in this condition. Not when he could barely maintain his balance. "Come on," she said, linking her arm through his. "Let's get you to that gate." He looked at her momentarily, something indecipherable flickering in his eyes. Then he nodded. "You're very compassionate, Danielle." Don't mention it, she said with a small smile. They resumed walking, Walter depending on her arm as much as the cat. Their pace was slow, agonizingly slow for someone with less than 2 minutes to catch her own flight. Every step felt like time escaping. Danielle's heart pounded. She glanced at her phone, 2:49 p.m. Her plane was boarding and she was halfway across the incorrect terminal. They finally reached the sign directing them toward gate F7. Danielle's stomach dropped. It remained a solid 5-minute walk away. For him, possibly 10 minutes. Her chest tightened like a clamp. Walter, can I find an airport assistant for you? They have wheelchairs. They can transport you there more quickly. He shook his head decisively. No, just a bit further. I can manage this. Danielle hesitated, internally torn, but she couldn't force him, so she continued walking with him, her legs demanding she run in the opposite direction. By the time they rounded the corner and spotted F7 in the distance, the screen above the counter displayed boarding closed. Walter looked up at her with a faint smile. Thank you, Danielle, for remaining with me. Her phone vibrated. She looked down. A notification from the airline application. Your flight to Los Angeles has departed. Danielle swallowed hard. Her chest felt empty. This was it. She had ruined her opportunity. But before she could speak, a gate agent approached and greeted Walter as if he were royalty. Mr. Kensington, we've been expecting you. Everything is prepared. Danielle blinked, confused. Expecting him. Walter acknowledged the agent with a nod and turned back to Danielle. It appears this is where we separate. He extended his hand. His grip, though gentle, was surprisingly steady now. Thank you, Danielle, he said again. You've accomplished more than you realize. Danielle forced a smile despite her breaking heart. She shook his hand, turned away, and began walking toward the nearest airline counter to determine her next course of action. But just as she reached the counter, her name resonated through the terminal, called by someone who would change everything. Passenger Danielle Rivers, please come to gate F9. Danielle stopped mid-stride, her heart skipping like a damaged CD. The announcement repeated clearly over the intercom. Passenger Danielle Rivers, please report to gate F9 immediately. She looked at the nearest sign. F9. That wasn't her original gate. Her flight had departed. So why were they summoning her? Her mind raced. Perhaps they had rebooked her. Maybe, just maybe, there was still hope. Clutching her tote bag, she hurried down the corridor, sneakers squeaking against the polished floor. Every second felt heavier than the previous one. When she arrived at F9, a young woman in a navy blue uniform smiled at her as if they had been expecting her all along. Ms. Rivers. Danielle nodded breathlessly. Yes, that's me. Is this regarding my flight? The woman's smile broadened, but there was something almost mysterious about it. Please follow me. Danielle frowned. Follow you where? Look, I missed my connection, but I must reach Seattle tonight. Can you? Don't worry, the woman interrupted gently. We'll take care of you. Something about her tone made Danielle stop protesting. She adjusted her bag strap and followed, her thoughts spinning like a carnival ride. We'll take care of you. What did that even mean? They walked past crowded gates down a quiet hallway she had never noticed before. Her sneakers tapped softly against the floor, the sound absorbed by the silence. It no longer felt like an airport. It felt private. Finally, the woman stopped before a sleek glass door with a silver keypad. She entered a code and the door clicked open. Right this way. Danielle stepped inside and nearly forgot how to breathe. The room resembled something from a film. Plush leather chairs, soft lighting, a buffet table loaded with gourmet snacks and champagne. It smelled faintly of vanilla and fresh flowers. A large window overlooked the runway, but there were no crowds here. Just a quiet, luxurious calm that made Danielle feel like she had entered another realm. I think you have the wrong person, she whispered, clutching her bag tighter. I can't afford this. The woman smiled again. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. Have a seat. Someone will be right with you. Danielle opened her mouth to object, but then she saw him. Walter, except he didn't resemble anything like the frail old man she had walked through the terminal. He was standing by the window in a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than her car, speaking to two men in sharp blazers. His posture was straight, his movements confident, his entire presence commanding. Danielle's breath caught in her throat. What on earth? Walter turned, and when his eyes met his, that same warm smile spread across his face. But now it carried weight, power. Danielle, he said, walking toward her with a steadiness that made her wonder if his earlier weakness had been genuine at all. She stood frozen as he reached her and extended his hand. Thank you for waiting. I was hoping we'd have a chance to talk. Danielle blinked, trying to process what was happening. I don't understand. What is this place? Why am I here? Walter's smile deepened. This is one of our private lounges. Our? She repeated slowly. Yes, he said, his voice calm but carrying an authority that settled into the room like gravity. You see, Danielle, I own this airline. Her jaw dropped. She stared at him, the words hitting her like a freight train. You what? I'm Walter Kensington, he said matter-of-factly, founder and CEO of Kensington Air. Danielle couldn't move, couldn't think. The man she had just helped pick up scattered shirts from the floor, the one who could barely twist a bottle cap, owned the airline. She sank into the nearest chair before her knees gave out. Her heart was racing so fast she thought it might burst through her ribs. Why? Why am I here? She finally whispered. Walter sat across from her, folding his hands calmly on the table between them. Because, Danielle, he said softly, people like you are rare. You gave up something important to help someone you didn't even know. And I don't forget people like that. Danielle's throat went dry. She opened her mouth, but no words came. And then Walter leaned in, his next words making her wonder if she had just stepped into a story too good to be true. Danielle sat frozen in that leather chair, the taste of shock thick in her throat. The hum of the lounge air conditioning faded beneath the pounding of her heartbeat. She stared at Walter, no, Mr. Kensington, trying to reconcile the image of the frail, struggling old man with the powerful figure in front of her now. You own Kensington, eh? Her voice cracked halfway through the sentence. Walter's smile softened as he nodded. That's correct. Danielle blinked again, still expecting someone to jump out and yell that this was some kind of prank show. So the whole time you were testing me or? Walter raised a hand gently. No tests, no games. I was exactly who you saw out there, a man who needed help. And you gave it without hesitation, even when it cost you. Danielle's stomach twisted. My flight. She trailed off, rubbing her temples. The weight of the misconnection slammed back into her. That interview was everything to me. Walter tilted his head, studying her closely. Tell me about it. She hesitated, unsure why he cared, but something in his expression, calm, genuine, made her answer. I was flying to Seattle, she said quietly. There's a marketing firm there. They finally called me for an interview. It's the kind of job that could change my life. Walter leaned back, listening intently, not like some billionaire humoring a stranger, but like a man truly interested in her story. Do you like marketing? He asked. I love it, she said without hesitation. I've been doing small projects here and there, social media campaigns, branding for local businesses, but it's hard to break through when you're stuck living paycheck to paycheck. Walter nodded slowly. And you gave that chance up for me. Danielle bit her lip. I didn't think of it like that. You needed help. It just felt like the right thing to do. Walter's eyes softened. That says a lot about you, Danielle. More than you know. For a long moment, silence settled between them. Heavy, but not uncomfortable. Danielle's thoughts spun in a million directions. Why was she here? Why was he telling her all this? Finally, Walter spoke again, his tone shifting slightly, calmer, but with a firmness that made her sit straighter. You know, most people in this world are in a hurry. Always moving, always chasing something for themselves. But you stopped. You saw someone in need and you chose compassion over convenience. That matters to me. Danielle let out a shaky laugh. I appreciate that. But honestly, I don't know what happens now. I can't afford to book another flight in my interview. Her voice cracked, and she quickly looked down, embarrassed by the sting of tears in her eyes. Walter leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. His next words were slow, deliberate, like each one carried weight. What if I told you you don't need that interview? Danielle frowned, confused. What do you mean? Walter smiled, not the polite kind this time, but the kind that hinted at something bigger. I own an airline. Yes, but Kensington Air is more than planes. We have partnerships in hospitality, logistics, even marketing divisions. And right now we're looking for someone to lead a project aimed at building authentic brand campaigns for local communities. Someone with creativity, persistence, and integrity. Danielle stared at him, her breath catching in her throat. Are you offering me a job? Walter chuckled softly. I'm offering you a career, if you're willing to take it. Her hands trembled against her lap. A dozen thoughts collided in her head at once. This can't be real. You just met me. Why me? Why would you trust me with something like that? She whispered. Walter's gaze held steady, his voice low but certain. Because how you treat people when no one's watching tells me everything I need to know. You chose kindness when it cost you. That's the kind of person I want on my team. Danielle swallowed hard, her eyes stinging now for a different reason. For a moment, she couldn't speak. All she could do was stare at him, trying to make sense of how one small decision, one act of simple humanity, had turned her entire life upside down. Finally, she managed to whisper, yes. Walter's smile widened. Good. Then consider yourself part of Kensington Group. We'll handle your accommodations, get you home safely, and start onboarding next week. Danielle laughed, half in disbelief, half in sheer joy. I don't even know what to say. Just keep being who you are, Walter said, standing to shake her hand. His grip was firm, strong, not the shaky touch she had felt before. And as he looked her in the eye, his voice carried a warmth that melted whatever fear was left inside her. Sometimes, he said softly, life rewards those who stop to care. But Danielle was about to learn this wasn't just a job. This was the beginning of a life she never imagined. Danielle sat there in stunned silence, her fingers tightening around the edge of a chair. She had agreed, but her brain was still trying to catch up to the words that had just left Walter Kensington's mouth. A career at his company. No more juggling two jobs. No more scraping by, counting quarters before every grocery run. Wait, she said finally, her voice shaky. You're serious? This isn't some publicity stunt or something. Walter chuckled softly, lowering himself into the seat across from her. Danielle, I'm not interested in stunts. I'm interested in people who do the right thing when no one's watching. That's you. Her throat tightened. She wanted to cry, laugh, scream, maybe all at once. I don't even have a resume with me, she bloated, as if that detail mattered anymore. You won't need one, Walter replied, smiling gently. You've already shown me more than a piece of paper ever could. Danielle pressed her palms to her knees, grounding herself. Her life, her entire life, had just flipped in the span of 20 minutes. The woman who had been praying not to miss an interview was now sitting in a private lounge, being offered a role that sounded bigger than anything she had ever dreamed of. What exactly would I be doing? She asked cautiously. Walter leaned back, folding his hands. We're expanding our community outreach through authentic branding. Too many companies focus on numbers and forget people. I want campaigns that feel real, that matter. I need someone who understands struggle, who knows how to connect. That's you, Danielle. Her eyes widened. Me? I've only handled small clients, local businesses. That's exactly why I want you, Walter said firmly. You know what matters to the people we serve, and I'm giving you the resources to make something incredible. Danielle sat there, barely breathing. The weight of what he was offering wasn't just a paycheck. It was a chance to matter, a chance to do work she believed in. What's the salary? She asked, half joking, because her voice shook so badly. Walter smiled. Enough that you'll never have to take two jobs again. Danielle laughed through the tears she didn't realize had escaped. She wiped her cheeks quickly, embarrassed. I don't even know what to say. Say yes, Walter said simply, and when you're ready, come to our headquarters in Los Angeles. We'll handle everything else. Her mind was spinning like a carousel, but deep inside, something steady bloomed, a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. Yes, she whispered again, this time with conviction. Yes, I'll do it. Walter's face lit up with a warmth that reminded her of the man she had first helped back in the terminal. He stood and offered his hand again, and this time when she shook it, her grip matched his strength. "You made the right choice today," he said softly, "not just in helping me, but in believing in yourself." As she sat back down, trying to absorb it all, a flight attendant walked in with a tray of champagne flutes. Walter took two and handed one to her. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his glass. Danielle lifted hers with trembling fingers. "To kindness," she whispered, the word catching in her throat. The clink of their glasses sounded like a door swinging open to a future she never thought she would see. And as she sipped, Danielle couldn't help but think. This morning, she was just another tired woman in an overcrowded airport. Now she was the newest hire at a billion-dollar company because she chose to care when no one else did. But as surreal as this moment felt, the truth was simple. One small act had changed everything. Hours later, as the private car carried her to a five-star hotel arranged by Walter's team, Danielle stared out the window, watching city lights blur against the darkening sky. Her mind replayed the day like a movie, the rushing, the panic, the choice to stop. And now this. One decision, one moment of choosing someone else over herself, had rewritten her entire future. She thought about how easy it would have been to keep walking, to tell herself it wasn't her problem. That's what most people did. That's what life teaches you sometimes. Look out for yourself because no one else will. But kindness, real selfless kindness, it still mattered. And today proved it could move mountains. When her phone buzzed with a message from Walter, "Welcome to the family," Danielle smiled through tears. She didn't just get a job. She got a chance to live with purpose. And as the car turned toward the hotel entrance, one truth settled deep inside her. Sometimes the fastest way to get where you're meant to be is by stopping to help someone else. So the next time you're rushing through life, ask yourself, would you stop? Because you never know who you're helping or how much it might change your life. If this story touched you, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs hope today, and don't forget to subscribe for more real life lessons that prove one thing: kindness always wins.